Okay, it's time to make some gummies. This is one of my favorite preparations any time of the year, but it's a really good gift, and it's a really good time of year for taking your elderberry gummies because, as I already mentioned, they're so wonderful at fortifying and strengthening the immune system. And of course, the winter months is when the immune system is the most vulnerable. So it's always good to be taking something daily, feeling like you're taking an active role in your health and well-being and wellness. So again, we're just sticking with simple basic stuff here. We have our tea of elderberry, which we made earlier and pressed. We're using a beef gelatin, and I only have really used beef for making gummies before, but you can look for alternatives out there. Agar is one of the common ones that's used by folks that are making vegan gummies, and I'll of course find you a recipe that I can add to the course later. And we have orange juice to sweeten it up, make it more tasty for kids, because of course we're going to want our children to take these gummies. I mean, they're in the shape of flamingos and pineapples, for gosh sakes. Children are going to want to eat these. And then a little bit of honey to sweeten it up. And so let's just get going with combining our ingredients. So I like to do everything under a little bit of heat. So I'm going to start by getting my tea warmed up, along with my orange juice. And then once it's nice and warm, that's a good time to pour in your beef gelatin. Okay, so I'm going to let that get up to temp, and we'll add the gelatin at that point. And for this recipe, we're doing 2 tablespoons of gelatin. So gelatin is really potent stuff. Really good at strengthening the hair, skin, and nails. And you definitely want to try to find an organic source if you can, as well as a grass-fed source. I'll drop a link for that as well. Okay, so let's break up our gelatin here. Another good opportunity to use the immersion blender, my favorite tool ever, because the gelatin at this point is still clumping together. Sometimes it'll do that when added to water. Okay, this is warmed up really nicely, so really don't need it to get too hot, just hot enough that the gelatin can nicely incorporate. So I'm going to put it back in my Pyrex measuring cup because I'll have an easier time blending all of my ingredients in there. It's harder in the larger vessel here because I just end up splashing it everywhere. But at least we know we're going to have some good bloopers outtakes. Colleen spills again. Shoe fly. Nice. Okay, so now that this is looking nicely blended, we're going to add in our honey, ensuring that it's not too hot because we don't want to compromise the raw integrity of our honey. So a raw honey is really wonderfully nutrient rich and has a lot of good microbes. But the moment you add it to a heat source that's over like 110 degrees, it will not be raw anymore. It cooks it. So 2 tablespoons of honey and 2 tablespoons of gelatin. That is the combination of those. Okay, once I get all of that off the spoon, I'll hit it with the immersion blender one more time, and then after that, it is time to put it in the mold. Okay. You can always sweeten these more if you find that your kids are not interested in them still, although I think they taste pretty great with the addition of the orange juice. Okay, now we're having serious fly action. They love the gelatin apparently. Okay, this is the fun part, and the part that your kids are gonna love is pouring all of these molds. So the little tiny ones are my favorite. They're also the most labor intensive. And you basically go until you've run out of liquid. And notice how I've got my molds sitting in a cookie sheet. That's because at this point I won't be able to pick them up anymore without spilling a bunch of gummy liquid everywhere. So I can carry this over to my fridge and just slide it right in. So you want to make sure that you have a designated fridge space ready to go so that you can just slide your gummies in there. It takes at least a half an hour for them to form into solid gummies. And again, much like our syrup that we just made, we don't have a super preservative in here. We just have some honey. So these do have a shelf life, and I usually try to consume mine within 2 weeks. So keep them in the fridge, much like a syrup. Put them in a nice little container that's inviting and easy to access. Of course, elderberry is still strong medicine, so you want to make sure that you get your dose right, especially if you're using your gummies with young children. And anything that's honey-based has to be avoided by any infants under 1 year of age. Their bellies don't have the enzymes to break down raw honey, or honey of any kind for that matter. So that's the one rule of thumb with who cannot take products that contain honey. Whoa. Okay, buddy. It's like making ice cubes. And our gummies are now out of the fridge. They've been in the fridge for a few hours now, so it's time to pop them out of their molds and eat them. And you know, all your molds are going to have their own quirky nature, best ways to get them out. But really, all we're gonna do at this point is just lay them all out on the parchment paper. And then once I'm done getting them out, I'm going to put them in a Tupperware and keep them in my fridge. Again, they do have a shelf life, so it's important that you enjoy them in the amount of time. It's about 2 weeks until they start to mold, because there's a water phase and because there's no real preservative in them besides that small amount of honey. They aren't going to last too long, but they're delicious, and especially if you have kids, they will probably be gone before 2 weeks is up. I'm a little pineapple. If you like pina coladas. Pina colada gummies would be super good. I love the gelatin piece of gummies because gelatin is so good for you. It strengthens your nails. I really notice a difference. I have pretty weak nails. So I definitely, if I'm eating gelatin, if I'm eating my gummies every day, I notice a nice strengthening in my nails happening. All right, I've got my gummies all unmolded, and now they're ready to pop in the fridge and keep for enjoying every day. They are dose dependent. There's not, there's a little bit of elderberry in each one, not even as much as a tablespoon of elderberry juice in each. So, I'll eat 2 of these pineapples in one sitting. I've also, again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I have been known to just eat more than my dose worth, and nothing really bad has ever happened to me. Yeah. Remember, elderberry is just really great for fortifying your immune system. That dark, rich color of the elderberry implies that it's full of antioxidants, and it's really good not only for keeping you from potentially getting a cold or flu, but it also can help shorten the duration of colds and flus. So elderberry is a great herb to play with when making your gummies, but of course it's not the only herb. You can make gummies with any decoction of any herb that you choose. Just depends on what ailments you're treating or what systems you want to fortify. And of course, in this lesson, I will give you some other ideas for some great recipes for different types of gummies, but enjoy the creative process and happy making. I already have so many in my mouth.